Bakai the side, and we're gonna take up the IPO analysis of AGS TRANSACT Limited, which is open for subscription till tomorrow. Okay, so what are the main things we're gonna talk about in this video? Is the first, what does the company do? The second would be the industry analysis. The third would be its financials, and the fourth would be the risk involved, litigations, and the other IPO details. And at the last, I'm going to tell you a very interesting fact about the company is that it's a complete OFS, but still all the money will be going to the company and not to the promoters. Okay, but before that, you need to know what's the difference between a fresh issue and an OFS. Okay, in an OFS, the promoters mainly exit the company through an IPO, but in a fresh issue, the company issues the new shares against the IPO process. So that's the main difference between both of them. Now let's try and understand what does the company do in simple words. Okay, AGS Transact Technology is the largest integrated omni-channel payment solutions provider in India. Okay, was this simple enough for you to understand? No, not at all. Okay, then let's make it more simple. So now let's focus on the two main keywords over here. Is the first one is the payment solution and the second one is the omni-channel method. Okay, so AGS Transact provides payment solution between two parties. So whenever two parties enter into a financial transaction, to simplify this transaction or to facilitate this transaction, whether it's the hardware or the software or the technology required, is provided by the AGS technology. Okay, second, let's talk about the omni-channel method. Okay, it is a type of a multi-channel approach of the company to facilitate the sales through online and offline method both. Okay, so if we talk about in the physical method or the offline method, it could be through an ATM, it could be through a CRM. Okay, so CRM is basically a cash recycler machine, and the third would be the POS, which is a point of sale machine. Okay, and in the digital method, it could be internet banking, mobile banking, or it could be even the UPI. And I'm very much sure you are much aware about of all this. Let's talk about the three major business segments of the company. Okay, the first one is the payment solutions. The second one is the banking automation solutions, and the third one is the other automation solutions. Okay, now let's talk about the first one, payment solutions. 76.8% of the total revenue comes from this segment. Okay, what comes under this? Let's talk about it. ATM and CRM machines, cash management services, transaction switching services, digital payment services, POS machines, agency banking, and other prepaid cards. Okay, so who are their customers? Let's have a quick look. ICICI Bank, Axis Bank, HDFC Bank, Federal Bank, BPCL, Indian Oil Corporation, and Patanjali are the renowned companies are the main customers of the AGS Transact Technologies under this segment. Okay, now let's talk about the second one, banking automation solutions. 9.1% of the total revenue comes from this segment. Okay, what comes under this? Sale of ATM and CRMs, currency technology products, self-service, terminals like example passbook printers, automated banking systems like example automatic check depositors, and other digital services. So who are the customers in this segment? There are almost 50 banks like ICICI, HDFC, and Axis banks and other on. The list goes on. Now let's talk about the third one, other automation solutions. What comes under this? 14.1% of the total revenue comes here. Supply automation products, retail automation, and the petroleum like HPCL, Indian Oil, and other more. So I hope now you have the idea of all the business segments of the AGS Transact Technologies. So before going into the industry analysis, I will just ask you one simple question, that how many times have you ever visited to an ATM in just last 1 month? So many of you would say that we are using Google Pay or Phone Pay or Paytm to facilitate the transaction, and we have reduced the ATM visitings. Okay, but that doesn't mean that the cash circulation in the country is going down. Just have a quick look at this graph. Okay, this graph clearly shows that the money being circulated in the India is much more higher than in cash rather than in the UPIs and all that. Okay, so now let's move on our discussion of how much are the cash transactions in comparison with the non-cash transactions. The non-cash transactions also include the net banking or the UPI or whatnot. Okay, it clearly shows that around 89% of the accounted transactions are in the cash and not in that non-cash transactions. Only 11% are done through UPI and all that. Okay, so in the if we talk about the ATMs, then for every 1 lakh people, there are about 20 or for every 1 lakh people of Indians, there are only 22 ATMs available in the country. Okay, so this gives the company the higher advantage to grow more in the tier 2 and tier 3 cities. Okay, moving on to the last part of the industry analysis. Here we are talking about the India payments industry and what are the different parameters that we are going to discuss are UPI transactions. Second would be the usage of ATMs, and the third would be usage of POS. Usage of ATM and usage of POS have significantly decreased than compared up to 2019, but the usage of UPI has consistently increased from last couple of years. Okay, so now let's move on to the financial analysis of the company. If you check out the revenue from operations, you will be able to see that from 2019 to 2021, the revenue have not been increasing. In fact, there is a slight drop in the revenues. Even if you are checking the 5 months ended data, it has dropped off to 7534. So if the company is able to generate a revenue in the same proportion of the 5 months data, it might reach somewhere close to FY21 figures. But if I'm talking about the profits for the year before any taxes and all that, you can see from 19 to 20 it has increased a bit, but then again in the 21 it decreased, and for the 5 months ended data, the company is in losses of 47 million. One of the main reasons for that might be you can see that there is a sharp drop in the other income from 382 millions to just 89 millions, right? If I move ahead with the balance sheet side, you can see here that the for other equity is what reserves and surplus that has been steadily increasing for the 3 financial years again. A slight drop for the 5 months ended data, and one more point to focus on is the borrowings. It is continuously increasing, so debt to equity ratio is more than 1, it's actually more than 2. Now let's check out the cash flow statement. One positive thing about the company over here is that for all the 3 years operating activities are positive, but there is a drawback too. It is positive, but it is also decreasing. Now let's check out the key ratios of the company. The current ratio of the company as of 2020-21 is 1.4, debt to equity is 2.07, the EBITDA ratio is 26.5, PBT margin is 4.59, PAT profit after tax is 3.05, return on equity is 9.81%, and return on capital invested is 3.19%. So now let's talk about the risk and the litigations involved in the company. So main risk is that the major of its revenue, like 62.8% of the revenue comes from the top 10 companies. So that's mainly a drawback. If the company loses one or two companies, then there might be a steep fall in the revenues. The second one is the loss in the transit. We see that the company is doing into the business of CRM, cash recycler machine, so there are chances that it might occur into a robbery or a theft. Okay, and if we talk about the litigations, there are no currently litigations mentioned in the red herring prospectus as of right now. If we talk about the IPO details, then the IPO is open from January 19 to January 21 in the price band of 165 to 175. There would be 85 shares in each lot, and the issue size is about 680 crores. So the main point I was talking about in the earlier section of the video is that it is complete OFS, but still the proceeds will be going to the company and not to the promoters. So what is that? Let me tell you more about that in detail. So the proceeds which the Mr. Goyal would be receiving after the IPO will be directly given to the company AGS TRANSACT Technologies, and the AGS TRANSACT Technologies will use this money to repay the NCDs, that means the non-convertible debenture holders, to repay their money back to them. Okay, so on and all, the money is not going to Mr. Goel, but it's going to repay the NCD holders of the company. So all in all, we conclude the video over here, and if you ask me if you are going to apply or not, Karan, then my answer would be no, because I didn't like the financials and its high price valuations. Though I like the business models, but the valuations at which the company is trying to bring the IPO is pretty very much high. So I won't be applying, but all the best to you guys if you want to apply.